Welcome to Gladwin Free Methodist Church's Super Mission Sunday service. Today we will be hearing from Joyce Swartzmiller of Hospice of Gladwin Area, a New Dawn Shelter guest's testimony, and Davey Mead from Gladwin Young Life will bring the message.
I am glad to introduce you Joyce Swartzmiller from Gladwin Hospice, and she's going to share a few words about that ministry.
Thank you. That was wonderful music, very inspirational. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. As I said, my name is Joyce Swartzmiller, and I'm from Hospice of Gladwin Area. We are located right here in the church, back by the gym, in the 2 rooms off to the left of the gymnasium. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our history and how we got started. Back in the early 80s, 2 nurses at the health department were worried about their neighbors, their friends, dying alone. And they didn't want that to happen. And at that point, hospice was being more recognized all over the county, all over the state, really all over the world. So these 2 nurses got together with a bunch of people from your local community, and they looked into what it would take to have a hospice right here in Gladwin County. In 1986, Hospice of Gladwin Area was chartered and became a 501c all-volunteer hospice. We do not do medical. We only do respite care. And what exactly does that mean? That means we come in and we will sit with your loved one, your neighbor, your friend, your relative, while the caregiver who's giving them that 24-hour care is out doing something like maybe taking a nap. When you're working 24 hours a day helping somebody, sometimes that nap is really important. Sometimes it's getting groceries. Sometimes it's getting your haircut or seeing your own doctor about those issues that you have with yourself. So that's why we come in and we sit with people. And we are an all-volunteer hospice. Everything we do is for free. And all you have to have is a life-limiting illness. And we work with all the medical hospices that come into town. And I know you're going to say, okay, well, how many are there? Believe it or not, there are about 12 medical hospices that come into Gladwin County. They come from Bay City, Saginaw, West Branch, and we even have a few here that are housed here in Gladwin County. We even got one that comes from Cadillac. They all come into Gladwin County and help your neighbors, your family, and your friends. A lot of people want to know, when is it time to call hospice? Big question that we get a lot of. I've heard, well, my doctor told my mom that she needed to call about 6 months ago, but we didn't do that because we didn't think she was ready for hospice. But now we know she's very sick and we need help. Sometimes we get a call. We had one this weekend. We got a call and the person died before we could even get there. That's waiting too long. Hospice doesn't mean you're giving up. It means that you've chosen the path that you want. It's no longer curative. It's more helping you pass an easier way, working with people. Like I said, we do work with medical hospice. Sometimes we are the first ones that get the call. No, they don't know who to call, so they look in the phone book, and Hospice of Gladwin Area, probably we're number 1 in that hospice category, and we get a lot of calls. So then we talk to people about what is their need, what is it that they have. We ask a lot of questions, and we try to figure out, is it something that one of my volunteers can handle? Or is it something they need medical hospice now? I went out and spoke with a family back in December, and while I was visiting, I knew that the wife wasn't doing very well. And I said to the husband, I think it's really time we call medical hospice in, get them in to help her. They came, they made her much more comfortable. They worked with her medicines to get it down to where the pain was it was under control, and they helped her in that respect. She lived a week. So you never know when to call. So the best time to call is when you first get that diagnosis of an irreversible, life-limiting illness. Find out everything that you can find out about hospice. You may not want to sign up right away, but get comfortable with the term hospice. It's really not a life sentence. It's more of a support group. Who can refer a client to hospice? Anyone. Anyone here in the church, if you know someone that needs some help, call hospice. We'll be glad to sit down and talk with you. If you get their permission, we'll go out and sit with them. We'll talk with them. And we'll offer our services if they fit that. If they don't fit with, and they're beyond what we can do, we have a whole list of those 12 or 14 different hospices, name, address, phone number, where we can connect them with that medical hospice. What else do we offer? Well, one of the things that we really have gotten good at over the years is grief support. Working with people that have a life-limiting time with us, we've gotten very good at working with the family, helping them through their grief. We offer a care plan, which is we'll stay with the family for 13 months. We give them materials every single month. We have a program that has a beginning and an end, and we know kind of through all these years where they are in that month-to-month time. We also send cards for birthdays, anniversaries, all the holidays. We want you to know that we're with you all the way, as long as you need us. We also do a little one-on-one where some of we don't call ourselves counselors because they're not licensed to be a counselor, but they're grief support people. We'll sit down and help you one-on-one. And we also do a 6-week grief support class where you can come in and tell your story and work through your grief. We also have the month of November is Memorial Service Month for hospice. The whole month is Hospice Month. And we do a memorial service, and the church allows us to use this sanctuary right here. We hold our memorial service the first Sunday in the afternoon in November. We add, and we have a list of all of our clients, plus we take anyone from within the community. So people will call us and say, hey, I see that you're having your memorial service. Would you add my mother? Would you add my sister? Would you add my brother? And so we do that for them, and we invite them to come in, and it's a candlelight service. It's a beautiful service. Now, those are a couple of the things that we offer, but we also, with the help of people from the community, we have what we call a lending closet. And in our lending closet, if you need a walker, a wheelchair, hospital bed, you need any of those kinds of supplies or pieces of equipment, you can come in and pick those up free. Somebody gave it to us, so we're just turn around, clean it up, and loan it right back out. And so you can come in and pick it up, keep it for as long as you need it. Let's say you got a walker and you had it for a year, and the walker gets a little bit wobbly or gets a little rusty. Throw it out, come back, and get another one. We have lots of people giving us supplies. And we don't want to be a storage. We want to be somewhere you can come and pick up what you need and keep it for as long as you need it. It's your neighbors that has given us this stuff to help you. What else do we have? We have supplies. We get people that donate adult undergarments. We have nutritional drink, blue pads. We take everything that someone can give us and we make use of it. We have breathing tubing, so if somebody runs out, they come and get something from us. If you know what a nebulizer is, we get nebulizers donated to us, the face masks, tubing, and when somebody is in need, they'll call us and say, hey, do you have this? Well, we're not medical, so it's in the breathing box. You come and you take a look in the breathing box, you say, I can use that, I can use that, and I can use that. It's yours, it's free. People have given it to us, we're giving it out to the community. Sometimes we get things and we have them for a long period of time and we just don't know what to do with them. Well, we work with Mid-Michigan Community College and several other of the organizations within the community. The college we love to give equipment to. They have a simulation lab for nurses over at Mid-Michigan Community College, and they take a lot of the excess supplies that we aren't using, and they'll use them over there so that your kids or your sisters or brothers or whoever is taking that class can have some of these supplies, and it cuts down on their cost. So you're helping us, we're giving it to them, they're helping you, and we keep it moving. And that's the whole thing, is keep it moving. Again, where did we get all of this stuff that we have? And I'm going to open my office. And if you want to, while you're having lunch, stop in and take a look at the stuff that we have. Excuse me. You'd be more than welcome to stop by. Our office is open Monday through Thursday from 10 until 3. And on the weekends, we're open 24/7. We have someone on call right now. So if you needed something, you could call our number and someone would answer, make arrangements to meet with you at the office, or we have a rental shed, which is full. And you can stop and pick up anything that if we have it, it's yours. And so where do we get it? We get it from people just like you. Generous people from Gladwin County. We have one lady that drives up from, I think she's in Westland, Michigan. She comes with a van and she brings me all kinds of stuff. Nutritional drink, just tons of stuff. So people know about us. And to tell you there are more like us, there's only about 5 in the state of Michigan that are a non-profit, all-volunteer hospice. So you're very lucky to have an organization like this here in Gladwin County. Most of them, when hospice was being organized, I hate to say it this way, but they saw that there was money to be made. And so when hospice organizations decided whether or not they wanted to stay as an all-volunteer or become a medical volunteer, which charges for their service, most of your insurance companies pay for that service. But they all grew into medical hospices. We stayed the old-fashioned way of helping our brothers and our sisters free. So thank you for your support in us. And if you have any questions, you can check with me out at the table. Thank you very much for letting me come. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Joyce, for sharing a bit about hospice there. And as you mentioned, she'll be available after service during our potluck time and the like. And so as she talked, or maybe this is something that's been on your heart or mind for a while, wondering how you can get involved with that segment of the population, I would encourage you to specifically ask her, hey, how can I help? It may be time, it may be in some other fashion, or you may have some of that medical equipment taking up space in your home or in a closet or in a garage somewhere that certainly can be utilized by others. So just consider taking a few minutes of your time after service and talking with Joyce. Next up, we are going to hear from Michelle from New Dawn, or should I say formerly from New Dawn, but still very much involved there.
Good morning. I recently was a resident at New Dawn Shelter. I stayed there from September to December. I now have my own apartment. And one of the things that I was able to do by coming there was reuniting with my family. And my mother, I spoke to her when I was asked to do this. Wish she could have been here. She sent me a letter that she would like me to read to everybody this morning, so I'm going to do that for her as I promised. First of all, I would like to thank Gladwin Free Methodist Church, Pastor Phil, the faculty, the board members, staff, volunteers, and the congregation for supporting New Dawn Shelter. I wanted personally to let you know that the donations you give are not just helping a man or woman get off the street, but when they have nowhere else to go, you are reuniting broken families to become whole again. Michelle was estranged from her own family for many reasons for many years, none of which I will mention, but let me just say it was a desperate situation. The father of her small children did not want her to be around her adult children, nor her family. It was just easier for her to give up than fight anymore. After years of physical abuse, mental torment, and the loss of custody of her two little ones to foster care, Michelle realized what could she possibly lose by just walking away. She had nothing, especially her self-esteem. Essentially, this is about courage, love, and self-preservation. Michelle has told me how she felt as she walked out the door into the unknown, not knowing what was going to happen when she walked into the door of New Dawn. Fear gripped her heart, anxiety about all of the what-ifs. Would she be judged harshly? Would they reject her? Will they help get a life away from addiction and torment of guilt of her life choices? Would she ever be able to see her babies again? Would her family forgive her and accept her back into their hearts? Well, let me tell you, here is what she found. She found shelter, not just from the cold, but from the abusive hands, the chains on her heart, and the prison in her mind. She found people, loving and kind, people with hearts that listened and gave her strength. She met men and women who reached out to her with hugs and encouragement. She found acceptance and an unending listening ears and assistance to work out the details of her very complicated and broken life. Sorry. I lost my place. She was given total love and acceptance, and she has made lifelong friends who cry together, laugh together, pray together, and for one another. New Dawn picked her up off the street, a broken and empty woman who did not know if she had anything left in her. They and this congregation taught her she could and would succeed if she believed in God and in herself. Courage, such a small world. Thank you. I am an avid reader of the Bible study plans, and this morning I started a new one written by Chicago Bears player Rasheed Davis. He talks about courage in his writing, and he says he knows nothing about football when he started and had no clue about most of the things other players knew. All he could do was run. He said fear gripped him each and every time he stepped out onto the field, and the helmet was his shield. It gave him courage. He says, knowing I can do all things through Christ helped me overcome my fear. The verse reminded me that God's Holy Spirit is inside us and gives us courage and the strength to do what we need to do, to step into and through the scary things. God did not give us a spirit of fear. He gave us the spirit of power, love, and self-discipline. He says, I pray that you would have the faith to take that step forward out of the boat. Trust that God would be there. The reason I bring Rasheed into my letter is that his helmet was his shield. He felt stronger and prepared for battle to fight hard and win, just as God gives us his word. And he is our helmet against the weapons that come against us. He is our shelter from the storms of life. I can tell you from the bottom of my heart, this church and its efforts to support New Dawn does not just provide a roof over a person's head for a few days. They provide acceptance, love, encouragement, meals, assistance with community outreach programs. They arrange support groups, provide clothing for the little ones, household items through donations. But most of all, they provide courage. The courage to believe in themselves again, to have the courage to put on the armor of salvation, to believe once again God can do all things, the courage to step out of a life of emptiness into the loving arms of a mother who missed her little girl so very much. She is now reunited with her adult children. Soon the foster system will reunite her permanently with her small children. I am very proud of what she has accomplished in such a short time. But I know just as Rasheed could not win a game by himself, it took team effort to play. Just as it takes all of you to make possible the life my daughter now has, the life we all have with her. Our circle is now almost complete, and what a party we will have. Psalms 105:1 says, "Oh, give thanks unto the Lord, call upon his name, make known his deeds upon the people." I am making known to all of you from the bottom of my heart that I thank God for all of you and the helmet of courage you have given to my beautiful girl. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Lucy Hargis. I'm just in awe. I really couldn't even begin to tell you what blessings I've received in the short time I've been here. Next month, my children will be coming home permanently. And I have Doug, Darcy, Ruth. Oh my gosh, I don't know what I'd do without Ruth. Gladwin County's been awesome to me. I couldn't even begin to tell you everything. I wouldn't even know where to begin. So that's why I shared that with you this morning, because that was an awesome blessing to have my mother back in my heart and in my life. And she was gone for so long, and I'm just very blessed. And I'll do anything for them. The New Dawn Shelter has been absolutely life-changing to me, and I'm very happy to be a part of that.
Here's the amazing thing about ministries like Hospice and ministries like New Dawn. It can be scary, intimidating to get involved with that. It can be scary, intimidating to take that first step into a home of someone who is dealing with a terminal medical condition. What am I going to do? What can I say? How can I help? It can be scary, intimidating to walk into the shelter, not knowing what may come up in conversation, not knowing, how am I going to respond or anything like that. But the one thing that we can do is we can represent the love of God in those situations. And amazingly, when we do that, we get to marvel at His handiwork in the lives of those that we're interacting with. We get to marvel at what God has done in a life like Michelle's. We get to be a part of that process. God working through us to change somebody's eternity, be it somebody who finds themselves without a home and in need of the support that's offered through New Dawn, or be it in the life of those whose time on earth is extremely limited, and their family members. We get to be a part of changing eternity. And that is no small thing. I can tell you from personal experience and having specific knowledge at the shelter that one thing that's always needed is volunteers. People who are willing to spend a few hours a week, just give a few hours a week, and the return that you'll get on that is amazing. You'll find that it's not a burden at all, but rather it's a blessing. And so again, after our service, take time to talk with Joyce. With the shelter, take time to talk to Doug, Darcy, on how you can get involved, because the need is there, but the privilege is ours to serve.
It is good to be here, and I am thrilled at the opportunity to share a little bit about what Young Life is and how we got started and involved and why it even exists. I'm super excited. I have been looking forward for a long time to worshiping with this church family, specifically with this worship team, because I've heard stories for a long time from my really good friends right here in the 8th row, whatever it is. Mark on the drums and Destiny singing along with Kurt's crazy shenanigans. And now I finally got to experience firsthand. So if for nothing else this morning, it made my day. And it's good to be here. So what is Gladwin Young Life? Young Life is actually a really large organization. Why did we bring Young Life to Gladwin? Alicia and I are just normal, everyday people. Yes?
Your mic's off.
Oh, got you. How's that? So, Alicia and I are normal, everyday people just like you that live in this beautiful town, and that God has been doing a work in and showing us our stuff, everything that Kurt was just talking about. We're no different. We got stuff, we got junk in here that God wants to deal with, and through some of that process, God, a number of years ago, gave us some eyes to see a demographic of kids in our community that as a church, we weren't doing a great job of getting after. And that demographic of kids are kids that would never find themselves walking through the doors of any number of churches in this town. And so how do we make ourselves available to them? How do we come alongside of them and do life with them? How do we challenge and encourage them in things like their education and the things that they're facing in their home lives and the things that they're dealing with in their peer groups and relationships, the questions they have about why do we even exist, what is our purpose in life, all of these kinds of things, and yes, the opportunity to eventually share the gospel. Destiny is actually one of our very first Young Life kids. It was crazy. And she's a lot smaller than she is now. And super fun. I can remember sitting with Charlene at the top of the junior high school gym. And the first time we had talked or seen each other since we were kids. And our girls were running around on the basketball court, and it's just crazy that we're here now 8 years later, or 6 years, 7 years later, whatever it is. Math's not my strong suit. But so anyways, what is Young Life? It starts with the desire to, the end goal is to end up in one-on-one relationships with kids, mentor-style relationships, where we have the opportunity, what we call, to earn the right to be heard and then speak into their lives. And this is a process of time. You don't just walk into somebody's life, you know this, you don't just walk into somebody's life, share your infinite wisdom with them and expect that they are going to even care, because they're not. So how do we do this? So every week we have what we call club, and Young Life calls this a party with a purpose. It's very, very similar to any youth group oriented event. Food, kids will come. Games, kids will come. It has all of these elements to it, but the whole goal is a launching platform. This is a break the ice kind of thing, where we have the opportunity to just rub shoulders and start to establish a little bit of a relationship, a rapport, trust with the kids that we're spending time with and hanging out with. So the goal is from there moving towards something. The heart and soul of what Young Life is about is what we call contact work, and that is simply those one-on-one mentoring relationships. Our goal is to go where kids are, not ask them to come to where we are, but to go where they are, to show up in their life in the same way that Jesus came to us. We go to them. It's all about showing up in their lives and earning the right to be heard. And these interactions may take place in a whole bunch of situations or contexts. It can happen at a ball game. It can happen at a choir concert. Just showing up for the things that they've got going in their lives, the things that are important to them. An athletic event, you name it. It can look all kinds of ways. It can also look like including them in what you're doing. So this is the thing that it was tricky for Alicia and I to figure out. We've got full lives. We have children of our own. We got stuff going on. And how can we make time for one more thing? One of the coolest aspects for us in doing contact work has been just including somebody in what we're doing. Blake is going with me next weekend. Yeah. We're going to play some music at a camp down in Grand Rapids. I'm already doing it. Blake's going to come hang with me for the weekend. A lot of you guys like to hunt. You like to fish. There are tons of junior high and high school boys that would love the opportunity to get out and go ice fishing or step in the river here in town. You're doing it Saturday morning anyway. Take them along with you, that kind of thing. Alicia, so many times, just including a junior high girl on a grocery shopping trip. Right on? And they love it. They love it. It's crazy, but they love it. And because there's no way to fit another thing sometimes into our lives, but she's going grocery shopping. This boy got to eat, and so she's bringing somebody along with. So that's a little snippet of what contact work looks like. Camp is also another element of Young Life. So It is similar to maybe some Christian camping that you may be familiar with, a little different in that every camping experience, both summertime as well as weekends and stuff and throughout the school year, we as leaders and or mentors go with our kids to camp every time. So we build relationships with kids, and then we get to go into a context that's different outside of their everyday life, and for many kids experiencing things that they would never otherwise be able to experience. We walk through a journey through the gospel on every one of those trips, and we were able to do that with our kids and then come home and continue to do life in application with whatever experiences they had, whatever relationally between them and God they experienced. We get to come home with our kids and continue to do life with them as they apply that now into some very difficult situations that many of them find themselves in. And then campaigners is a Young Life term. It's just simply like Bible study and discipleship. So as kids respond on a spiritual level, then we invite them in to go deeper in a discipleship format. And so in that context, so club and a lot of the relationships are a lot of very entry-level faith-based elements, an introduction to who Jesus is, why we're here, how we got here, what went wrong, why we need a Savior, all of those kind of things. And but then as a student expresses interest in knowing more or going deeper or connecting their life with Jesus, then we draw into a different context where we can then go deeper and lead them through spiritually, relationally, an active relationship with God, and ultimately see them plugged in to a local church context like this one with their leader who they've already developed a relationship with. Then leader development is a piece of this as well. So, and this is a part that I love. This is the body of Christ being invested in and then growing in their relationship with God and then giving back and doing the work of the gospel. And so we spend a lot of time investing in our leaders, most of whom have been young, like college age, and I'm working on changing that. So one of the reasons I'm here this morning, so watch out. So there's a whole training process that we go through before you even become a leader, and then ongoing community as a leader team, encouragement, investment spiritually, and then the challenges to get out, come alongside of people, in this context, young people, and do life with them, and just be available to invest in them, to be there when things fall apart. A go-to that they can trust when they broke up with their significant other, or when mom and dad's stuff gets messy and family breaks up and they don't understand what's going on and they're dealing with all kinds of pain, or someone has hurt them in ways that should never happen. All of those things, there's a safe place they've developed a relationship with for them to go and find hope, find healing, find love, find help, even at times help beyond what we're even trained or capable of doing, but we can plug in where they need to be, and without that, they would never have connected with the help that they needed, so on and so forth. So to keep this brief, there are a couple ways that you can get involved. And I would love to talk to you more after, as you guys funnel off to lunch, if you have any interest. So we need leaders. As you can imagine, to run a mentoring program requires a lot of staff. This is not just throw 100 kids in a room, have 3 people on stage, make them laugh, make them jump, make them sing, and everybody goes home. Our intention and our goal is to get into one-on-one context with them. And so each leader really can only realistically invest in 2 or 3 kids. So if there's 50 kids involved, now we need a lot of leaders. And so this has been probably one of our biggest weak points. And we've had a lot of great leaders through the last number of years since we started. but we could use more, and especially, here it comes, especially in the 30, 40, 50, even 60-year-old range, because there is a common misconception about youth work, that somehow kids don't relate to you and you don't relate to kids, and that is a bunch of fill in the blank with whatever word you want to use to emphasize that. So that is just simply not true. Some of the best leaders I've seen in Young Life have been 50 and 60 years old, as we've been to camp with areas from all over the state and all over the country. And so we would love to see some of you that have a passion for Jesus, a love for this community, a love for kids, and a desire to make a difference, to come alongside of us and dive in as leaders. So that's one way. Secondly, we have been building committee of adult volunteers that have strapped on a lot of behind-the-scenes elements of this, and I am thrilled. Our whole goal, Gladwin Young Life, is a community program by the community and for the community, and our whole goal in the last 2 years has been plugging in leaders and committee that are from a variety of Bible-believing churches in this area that get the gospel at the core and are willing to flesh that out in investing in the lives of kids. And so we've seen that happen. There's several churches now represented on our committee, which I'm thrilled about. Just even in the last few months, has grown significantly. There are a couple of spots on committee that still are open and need to be filled. So if you are kind of a logistics or behind the scenes planner, visionary, those kind of things, I would love to talk to you afterwards about that. This church has been phenomenal in partnering with us in so many things. I love the heartbeat of this church, the whole thing. This morning even, hospice being here and the shelter and the 3 community programs that you guys have vested in. I love driving by this church. I think there is more traffic on a daily basis at this church than any other church in the community that I'm aware of, and I've lived here a long time. And I love that. I love that about you guys. On board, passionate about the mission of Jesus and making a difference in the lives of people in this community. And so, as part of that, we have junior high club right behind us back here in the gym. I'm sure we have driven the hospice gals crazy a time or two. Maybe once or twice. But it is such it is so reflective of the heartbeat of this church family and the leadership here, and we are extremely thankful. Yes, that's us here when we didn't have snow on the ground a few weeks ago before Thanksgiving. Love it. And then lastly, funding does require, there are expenses to run the programmatic pieces of this, and so whether it be individuals that jump on board at any myriad of monthly amounts or individual contributions, one-time gifts, that kind of thing, or church families that strap Gladwin Young Life on to support the programmatic elements. We have currently a part-time staff role that is paid, that our desire is to get a budget fully funded to the point where we can have a full-time staff role that's overseeing the expansion even into Beaverton School, Harrison School, and Clare Schools is kind of our 5-year vision. And it requires funding to do that. Lastly, we have a banquet coming up, February 15th, and at Riverwalk, that we would absolutely love to see you there. And there's opportunity to sponsor tables, so a whole table could be sponsored, and I think 6 or 8 people can come together as a group. You can come as an individual, and we will be highlighting a little more in depth than I am this morning. Young Life with some testimonies from some kids, some people from other areas even than Gladwin that are doing Young Life on the committee donor side of things and leader side of things that will be coming and sharing a little bit of music, because I love music, and it'll be a great night. So put that on your calendar and RSVP ASAP if you have a desire to go. You can talk to me about that at the back as well. So with that, they asked me, Pastor Phil said, hey, come talk about Young Life. That'd be awesome. And by the way, I'm going to be gone, so why don't you give us a message while you're at it? Like, okay, let's do that. So take out your Bibles if you would. If you have it this morning, I'm going to be reading from the NLT. Hey, what's your name, buddy? Yep. Robert. I met this young man before we started. I'm telling you what, this boy, he came to church this morning. Right on. Do you mind standing up, or does that embarrass you too much? Is that okay? Or no, you don't want to? That's right. What? You just take a look at this boy when he walks out of the room. Pretty sharp. Pretty sharp. He's ready. And then my sweet wifey, Alicia, is here. My daughter, Honesty, is here, who some of you know. She actually has been here a number of times when she was little, with some really good friends of ours, Jared and Lisa Lawson. And maybe a big ticket trip, maybe, or something. I don't know. A few things that she participated with you guys. And now we get to have her in our lives, which is awesome. So the rest of our gang, junior high, Young Life, is at camp this weekend. So we have a few kids up there. And so let's dive in. Jonah. I'm going to blast this entire book at you. Okay? You ready? It's going to be fast. I timed it 6 minutes. Okay? But there's some super stuff. It's not bad. This is the whole book, all right? So it's all right. How many kids are here? A few kids. You guys know this story of Jonah? Have you heard it before? Have you heard this story before? Yeah, I think so. Sweet, and the big fish? Yeah, all right. All right, let's jump in. The Lord gave this message to Jonah, son of Amittai. Get up and go to the great city of Nineveh. Announce my judgment against it, because I have seen how wicked its people are. But Jonah got up and went in the opposite direction to get away from the Lord. He went down to the port of Joppa, where he found a ship leaving for Tarshish. He bought a ticket and went on board, hoping to escape from the Lord by sailing to Tarshish. But the Lord hurled a powerful wind over the sea, causing a violent storm to threaten to break up the ship. Fearing for their lives, the desperate sailors shouted to their gods for help and threw the cargo overboard to lighten the ship. But all this time, Jonah was sound asleep down in the hold. So the captain went down after him. How can you sleep at a time like this? He shouted. Get up and pray to your God. Maybe he will pay attention to us and spare our lives. Then the crew cast lots to see which one of them had offended the gods and caused a terrible storm. When they did this, the lots identified Jonah as the culprit. Why has this awful storm come down on us? They demanded. Who are you? What is your line of work? What country are you from? What is your nationality? Jonah answered, I am a Hebrew. I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the land. The sailors were terrified when they heard this, for he had already told them he was running away from the Lord. Oh, why did you do it? They groaned. And since the storm was getting worse all the time, they asked him, what should we do to you to stop the storm? Throw me into the sea, he says, and it will become calm again. I know that this terrible storm is all my fault. Instead, the sailors rowed even harder to get the ship to the land, but the stormy sea was too violent for them, and they couldn't make it. Then they cried out to the Lord, Jonah's God. Oh Lord, they pleaded, don't make us die for this man's sin. Don't hold us responsible for his death. Oh Lord, you have sent this storm upon him for your own good reasons. And then the sailors picked Jonah up and threw him into the raging sea, and the storm stopped at once. The sailors were awestruck by the Lord's great power, and they offered him a sacrifice and vowed to serve him. Now the Lord had arranged for a great fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was inside the fish for 3 days and 3 nights. I'm actually going to jump to chapter 3. Then the Lord spoke to Jonah a second time. Get up and go to the great city of Nineveh and deliver the message I have given you." This time Jonah obeyed the Lord's command and went to Nineveh, a city so large that it took 3 days to see it all. On the day Jonah entered the city, he shouted to the crowds, 40 days from now, Nineveh will be destroyed." The people of Nineveh believed God's message, and from the greatest to the least, they declared a fast and put on burlap to show their sorrow. When the king of Nineveh heard what Jonah was saying, he stepped down from his throne, took off his royal robes, dressed himself in burlap, and sat on a heap of ashes. Then the king and his nobles sent this decree throughout the city: "No one, not even the animals from your herds and flocks, may eat and drink anything at all. People and animals alike must wear garments of mourning, and everyone must pray earnestly to God. They must turn from their evil ways and stop all their violence. Who can tell? Perhaps, even yet, God will change his mind and hold back his fierce anger from destroying us." When God saw what they had done and how they had put a stop to their evil ways, he changed his mind and did not carry out the destruction he had threatened. 10 more verses. This change of plans greatly upset Jonah. He became very angry, so he complained to the Lord about it. "Didn't I say before I left home that you would do this, Lord? That is why I ran away to Tarshish. I knew that you are a merciful and compassionate God, slow to get angry and filled with unfailing love. You are eager to turn back from destroying people. Just kill me now. Lord, I'd rather be dead than alive if what I predicted will not happen." The Lord replied, "Is it right for you to be angry about this?" Then Jonah went out to the east side of the city, made a shelter to sit under, and as he waited to see what would happen to the city, and the Lord God arranged for a leafy plant to grow up there, and soon it spread its broad leaves over Jonah's head, shadowing him from the sun. This erased his discomfort, and Jonah was very grateful for the plant. But God also arranged for a worm. The next morning at dawn, the worm ate through the stem of the plant so that it withered away. And as the sun grew hot, God arranged for a scorching east wind to blow on Jonah. The sun beat down on his head until he grew faint and wished to die. "Death is certainly better than living like this," he exclaimed. Then God said to Jonah, "Is it right for you to be angry because the plant died?" "Yes," Jonah retorted. "Even angry enough to die." Then the Lord said, "You feel sorry about the plant, though you did nothing to put it there. It came quickly and died quickly. But Nineveh has more than 120,000 people living in spiritual darkness, not to mention all the animals. Shouldn't I feel sorry for such a great city?" Lord, thank you for these moments in your word. Thank you for the scriptures that you've given us to lead us in our journey with you, and I pray that you would open our eyes to see what you have for us this morning. Amen. So the Lord gave this message: get up and go to the great city of Nineveh, announce my judgment against it, because I have seen how wicked its people are. Verse 3 says, "But Jonah got up and went the other way." What? Okay, let's check this out. So, God tells Jonah to deliver a message that was exactly what Jonah wanted to happen. Go tell the people of Nineveh that judgment is coming, they're going to be destroyed. But Jonah goes the opposite direction, disobeys God, will not deliver the message. Why? Any kids in the room brave enough to answer that? Why? Why would he go the opposite direction when the message was consistent with what he wanted to see happen? Anybody? Adults?
He didn't want Nineveh to survive.
He didn't want Nineveh to survive, but God said it was going to be destroyed. That's the message God gave to Jonah. So why did he go the other way, fearing that it wouldn't be destroyed, when God just told him, give this message, I'm going to destroy it? Anybody?
He knew he was a compassionate God.
He knew something about God that was deeper than just the command that God had given. He knew God's heart. So point number one this morning is know the heart of God. Here's the deal. God is committed to His mission and His kids. You won't stop Him. And He's full of unfailing love, as Jonah in his rant actually acknowledged about God in verse 2 of chapter 4. So let's recap the story. So God sends this crazy storm because Jonah ran away from him, went the opposite direction. Sailors fear for their lives while Jonah is sound asleep inside the ship. Sounds a lot like my kids. We have this chorus every morning in our house of alarm clocks. The girls, they all sleep in the same room. There's 4 girls in there. And they all have their own alarm clock. From Callie, who's 11, to Audrey, who's 18. And it is a chorus of alarm clocks. And you would think somebody would wake up and shut the doggone things off. But they're getting better. They're getting better. I love to tease my kids. So then they fear for their lives. Jonah's sleeping. Even though he's running from God, he's just totally doing his thing. So the cast lots figure out who this was, which is very consistent with their personal religious affiliation, the gods that they serve. This was very consistent for them to do this casting of lots, which we all know God's ultimately the one in control. And they didn't want to throw Jonah overboard, which is interesting. He's the cause of the storm. They're freaking for their life, but they still had enough integrity and compassion on humanity to not want to throw Jonah overboard. And here Jonah is running because he's just can't wait to see this entire city destroyed. And he's a God follower. Not just a God follower, he's a prophet of God. Literally talking to God. And these guys had more compassion on the human race than he did. God prepares a fish to swallow Jonah and gives Jonah the biggest timeout the world's ever seen. Jonah repents, or at least complies, right? He's like recognizing, okay, God, you're a lot bigger than I am. I can't fight against you. My heart hasn't changed, but this belly of this fish is starting to stink, and I'm not having fun down here. So I will go. So this morning, how long will you run from God's unfailing love? 25 times David refers to God's unfailing love in the Psalms. And this is a guy that had done so many things. I mean, his failures were big. His failures were big, and yet he's a man after God's own heart, says the Scripture. And I love even the heartbeat that Kurt recapped just a little bit and where you guys are going as a church family before I got up here, because this is David's story. And I love that the Bible just shoots straight, because there's only one that we worship. There's only one that was ever good enough. There was only one that was ever qualified to have our attention and to have our adoration and worship and to have our surrender of our very lives. And it's God Himself and His Son Jesus and His Holy Spirit that lives inside of us. Jonah knew where rescue came from. In chapter 2, verse 9, it says, "For my salvation comes from the Lord alone." So this is where things get a little interesting for me. If you're like me, we come to Christ for salvation, acknowledge our need for salvation, and then keep attempting to write our own story. Okay, so did you track with me? So we come to salvation. We see I'm a broken man. I don't measure up. God, I need you for salvation. But then I become a Christian, and I start living my life as a Christian, and I'm still writing my story. Does that make sense to you? Are you tracking with me? I'm still the one saying, no, this is what this is supposed to look like. And then when things don't work out, I'm going, God, what's going on here? What's going on? I don't like this. I think if we talked to Jonah, that we would have been pretty sympathetic to his cause. Maybe he had family that had been captured and tortured during some of the conflicts with the Assyrians. The Assyrians were pretty brutal with their prisoners of war, if you've done any history, digging around in history around that time. Maybe he was incredibly loyal to his people, and the Assyrians were a threat to that. Maybe a lot of things. They're totally justifiable to Jonah and probably every other Israelite at that time. But Jonah clearly knew God, even knew the heart of God. Jonah was actually in agreement with God about where these people were at spiritually. But being right wasn't right in this whole story as it unfolds. God wasn't asking Jonah to be right. He was asking Jonah to be obedient. Why? Because God was up to something far greater than mere rightness. It's called redemption. And for a lot of church people, this is a hard pill to swallow. So now I'm shifting gears. I'm not talking to Gladwin Free Methodist Church anymore. Because what's happening in this church family is super cool. I love it. God and His mission is alive and well here. And so now I'm talking to brothers and sisters in Jesus, one-on-one, you and me. Because I need this message, whether it be as a reminder or whether it be as a correction or redirection of how I see life and see the world and see other people. So for a lot of church people, this is a hard pill to swallow. For some of us in the room, this is a huge issue. You mean you want me to just let these people get away with this stuff? You've held on with tenacity and justified how you treat others for years on the basis that you are right. In fact, some of us are so committed to this that we will completely embrace 10 wrong things for the sake of one right one. And if you just thought to yourself, I don't do that, this section might be for you. We'll see. The whole story. So, last summer, we've gotten in. Are you guys familiar with the trail behind the park? It's like North Park's paved, Riverwalk to the city park. Behind the park's paved a little ways. Get to the walk bridge, and then it turns to dirt from there. So some of you nodding your heads, I love it. So where it turns to dirt, Gladwin Young Life for the last couple of years has been given the opportunity in the month of May to get out there and cut down trees and clear brush, open the trail up, all that kind of stuff. And so inevitably, you always have it. You have a group of kids, you have a group of people, humanity, working on something, right? And you always have the ones that are just rule followers, right? I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm cutting these branches down. I'm raking this stuff up. I'm just doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And then you always have the ones, those kids. They tend to be in junior high, but sometimes in high school too. That they get 5 minutes in, right? And they're trimming some branches, and then a butterfly flies by, and away they go off in the woods. And then it's the squirrel, and then there's this pretty rock, and then they dig under the rock, and there's a centipede, and and before the leaders even realize it, where is Johnny? We don't know where Johnny is, and he's out in the middle of the woods somewhere. Well, and usually, before even a leader picks up on it, guess who picks up on it? The kids that are working hard, and they're doing the right thing, right? And so, what do they usually do? Initially, they're going to go out after them. Because after all, I'm right, you're wrong, you need to get back here and get to work. So you have this little confrontation. Hey, we're supposed to be working, we're supposed to be clearing this trail. Davey told me blah, 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 blah. Right? And then, of course, you ain't my mama. You ain't going to tell me what to do. Whatever. You got this whole thing going on, right? And so you get this little dynamic. And then usually, good little kid comes over to whoever's in charge, right? And says, hey, those guys aren't working, doing their job. And to which I would say, what did I ask you to do? Clear the trail. Oh, okay, well, I'd just like you to keep clearing the trail. Well, if they're not going to do it, I'm not going to do it. This isn't fair. This isn't fair. And you've all heard this, if you've spent time on planet Earth at all. So it's not right. They aren't working. So we leave our job to go and bring them back. We complain to the person in charge. We exchange intense words of how wrong they are. We talk bad about them. Here's a good one. We talk bad about them when they're not around. I might get back to my job, but me and Susie Pie here, we're going to have some words about how ridiculous those people are. And but they were right. They're right. They're not working. And that's wrong. It's true. But what was asked of them? What was asked of them? Go ahead. Clear the trail. Clear the trail. So point number 2 is obedience to God is always right. Obedience to God is always right. Jonah carries out his mission, or the mission that God gave him. And the message goes out to 120,000 people. 40 days and this great city will be destroyed. He does this for 3 days so that he can get through the entire city, and then something crazy starts to happen. Something that God didn't even say would happen, but Jonah knew it would. That's the crazy thing, because he knew God's heart. Jonah's obedience unleashed an unstoppable force. These hardened, wicked people's hearts became soft and responsive to the movement of God among them. Their eyes were opened to the depth of their crimes against their Maker and humanity, and they cried out for mercy and salvation from destruction. And what happened? The heart of God was enacted. Mercy was poured out. Dead hearts came alive. The true message was revealed, and an entire city was saved. And this is the message of the gospel from this cover to this cover. Amen. Jesus saves. And the hard, wicked heart of a religious man did not want it, because he hated these people with a vengeance. So, last and final point. When right goes wrong. Why is it that this is so hard for church people? This is a little piece of our story, and many. Alicia and I have been working with church people in several contexts, including our own church family, for a long time, with the task of leading, equipping, holding accountable church people to the work of the gospel. And I watched my parents for twice that time do the same. And the greatest opposition to the work of the gospel in this part of the world that I've seen and experienced is the church. It's church people. I've had meeting after meeting with different people, all active in the redemptive mission of Jesus, and all of them, from foreign missionaries to pastors, youth pastors, worship leaders, artists, college students in ministry, the theme is consistent. Our biggest challenges to the ministry is church people. And I've been a church person my entire life. And I'm asking myself, what? The very medium that God has chosen to carry His message of redemption and hope in the 21st century is actually working against its own message. Why? We're lazy. We want people to change on our timeline. We define what that change has to be or look like. And when that doesn't happen, after 6 months of work and the efforts of the gospel, we get discouraged. We develop attitudes towards people we're spending time with. We react to their blatant sin. They should know better than that. And many, not all, but many, walk away with an "I'm done with you" attitude and communicate a terribly false view of who God is. And let me insert here, thank you, as a church as a whole, for not being that. Embracing the community that you live in, day in, day out, not on Sunday morning, day in, day out. I love it. It's the Spirit of Christ flowing through you to love on people that desperately need Him, and it's beautiful. But I think as individuals in the room, we can really evaluate, where am I at? with this? Between me and Jesus, between me and the people that I live with in the world, am I more committed to being right than I am committed to the redemptive mission of Jesus? Jonah identified heavily with the reality that he was part of a people group that were literally called God's people. And heralding that identity, he completely lost sight of who he was apart from that. As in, who Jonah was before God's mercy. And this happens time and time again. Generations forget quickly where they have come from and start to think that identity in God's family is a basic right I deserve instead of a gift from a father who loves his kids. Loves me so much that he chased me down. He pursued me. He got in my way until I surrendered to his mercy. So I didn't get what I deserved. What I deserved was to die. What I deserved was total separation from God forever. And my father said, no. I love my kids too much. We'll make a way when there was no way. And sent his son Jesus to do something that no one has ever done, will ever do, could ever do, so that you and I could be reunited with him. And Jonah had lost sight of that. He did the same thing with Jonah. He did the same thing with the Israelites time and time again. Unless this foundational connection to the depravity of your own heart is realized, you will never fully connect with the gratitude, appreciation, and humility needed for a life in God. Because until then, you're not listening. You're holding on to your own thing, and your belief is that even God himself is not going to stop me. And that's a scary place to be. And off to Tarshish we go. Is this really the life you want? Because it'll take you to some really dark places. We're going to wrap up with just a couple thoughts here. Jonah, a prophet of God. A prophet of God. Did you connect with that? He's a prophet of God. He heard God's voice directly. He knew God's heart. And what happened to him? In Jonah chapter 4. This change of plans greatly upset Jonah, and he became very angry. So he complained to the Lord about it. Didn't I say I left home? If I left home, or before I left home, that you would do this, Lord? That is why I ran away to Tarshish. I knew that you are a merciful and compassionate God, slow to get angry, and filled with unfailing love. You are eager to turn back from destroying people. Just kill me now, Lord. I'd rather be dead than alive if what I predicted is to happen. That's a dark place to be. So detached from the mercy that God has continued to show him personally, and time again has shown his own people. So justified in his own mind that he's yelling and arguing with God himself, his maker. That is insanity. And yet, do we do this? I find myself doing this sometimes. And that's frightening. It's frightening. Am I like Jonah? Receiving God's mercy for me and unwilling to give mercy to others, knowing all the right things and completely ignoring the heart of God for all peoples of earth. Is that me? In my marriage, is that me? With my children, is that me? With my parents, is that me? In my neighborhood, workplace, school, community, is that me? I've heard many ask the question, what is wrong with the church today? We're looking across, we're seeing all this stuff, people in, these denominations that we don't like, and stuff going on. What's wrong? What's going on? What's wrong with the church? We're so fragmented. We're supposed to be unified, and there's no unity. What's wrong with the church? The answer, I believe, is nothing. There's nothing wrong with the church today. Why? Because God himself is at the forefront of the church. He's leading the charge, breathing life into every crack and crevice of this planet. The church is alive and well, sweeping across nations with the same power it always has. You won't stop it. I won't stop it. Denominations won't stop it. Disunity won't stop it. Might hinder it for a minute. That's why we got to have these conversations from time to time. That's why we got to check our hearts from time to time. Because the world is watching. And we can hinder the work of God in this little community we call home. Because we're addicted to being right. And we fight with each other. We say horrible things to each other. And we push each other out of our lives. Completely ignoring the command of God to love one another as, John 13, I have loved you. It's no longer Old Testament, love your neighbor as yourself. No. Jesus took that one step further. Love as I have loved you. So we're going to remain addicted to being right. And truth is important. Don't get me wrong. We're preaching from this book right here. This is truth. Undeniable, unchangeable, immovable. And we better be in this thing. And we better be seeking Him. But not just to get right facts, but to discover His heart and His will and His mission. So that we can be obedient and get in the flow of what He's doing. Not what I want to see happen, not what my goals and agendas are, but what He's doing. Because in doing that, we will thrive. We will thrive. And the world around us will see Jesus instead of my stupid, foolish agendas. Amen. That are meaningless and a waste of time and energy for everyone, including myself, and take me to places that I should never go. Despairing of life. Jonah is despairing of life because he didn't get what he wanted, and he was right. He was right. These people deserve to die. But what he forgot was so did he. And so do I. So as a church, can we come together as a community, the body of Christ, beyond just Free Methodists, but Jesus followers in this area rallying around His mission and working together to invest in people's lives that need somewhere to go because they've lost their homes and lost everything. That is beautiful, you guys. It is beautiful. And few people are willing to step out and make the sacrifices necessary to do something like that, and you have. Are we willing to make a few sacrifices, step into the lives of a few kids in our community that just need somebody to believe in them, just to believe in them, and then win the right to speak into their lives? All this, why? Because we belong to Jesus. And we're in flow of His mission. Let me pray. Lord, thank You for these moments. Thank You for these guys and their willingness to sit even for a long time. It's been good to be in Your presence this morning. And I just pray Your continued blessing on the whole heartbeat here as these guys, in uninhibited fashion, surrender completely to You and the things that You've called them to do and be a part of in this community. I love the family that's here. The investments in each other that have been made, the camaraderie as they lean into You and lean into this community and make a difference. May ultimately You receive all the glory, and may lives continue to be changed as long as we're here. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.